Apollo? What are you doing here? Percy asked.
Well, it is my oracle, he said. I must see to the preparations. He turned to Rachel and said, Rachel Elizabeth Dare, you indeed possess the gift of prophecy. But you must understand that it is also a curse. Are you sure that this is the path you want to take?
Rachel nodded. Yes, this is my destiny.
Well then, he said, do you, Rachel Dare, accept the risks?
I do.
Then proceed.
Rachel closed her eyes and said, I accept this role. I pledge myself to Apollo, god of oracles. I open my eyes to the future and embrace the past. I accept the spirit of Delphi, voice of the gods, speaker of riddles, seer of fate. They had no idea where she was getting those words, but they flowed out of her like the wind. Green smoke popped out of the mummy's mouth and flew into Rachel's. The mummy collapsed into dust, leaving nothing but her dress. Rachel collapsed, but Percy caught her. Rachel, are you okay? He asked. Why do I have such a huge headache? She asked.
Ladies and gentlemen, Apollo said, I present to you your new Oracle of Delphi.
You've got to be joking, Annabeth said.
Oh, I never joke when it comes to my oracle, said Apollo.
Never mind, she said. It's surprising for me too, Percy, Rachel said, but this is my fate. I saw it in New York. I know why I was born with true sight. I was meant to become the oracle. You're telling me you could see the future now? Percy asked. Not all the time, Rachel said, but there are visions, images, words in my mind. Like, when someone asks me a question, Her eyes glowed serpent green. Her voice became deep and very similar to the way Luke's mom sounded back at the house.
7 hot-bloods shall answer the call. To storm or fire the world must fall. An oath to keep with a final breath, and foes bear arms to the doors of death.
Rachel collapsed, but Percy caught her. Her skin felt feverish. I'm all right, she said, with her voice back to normal. What was that? Percy asked.
I believe, Apollo said, we've just received the next great prophecy.
But what does it mean? I can't even remember what I said, said Rachel.
No, said Apollo, the spirit of Delphi will only speak to you occasionally. The rest of the time, our Rachel will be just as much as she's always been. Oh, and Percy, I wouldn't worry too much about that prophecy. After all, the one about you took like 70 years to complete. This one may not even happen in your lifetime.
It didn't sound too good, though, Percy said.
No, said Apollo cheerfully, but Rachel's gonna make a wonderful oracle.
It was hard to drop the subject, but Apollo insisted that Rachel needed rest. She did in fact feel really tired. I'm sorry, Percy, she said. Back on Olympus, I didn't really explain everything to you, but the calling frightened me. I didn't think you'd understand.
I still don't, he admitted, but I guess I'm happy for you.
She smiled. Happy probably wouldn't be the word I'd use. Seeing the future isn't going to be easy, but it's my destiny. I just hope my family... She didn't finish the sentence. Will you still go to that stupid school? He asked. I already made a promise to my dad. I guess I'll have to try my best to act like a regular kid during the school year, but...
But now, you need rest, said Apollo.
Chiron mentioned that Rachel could use a guest room in the big house for now. It was better than a dusty attic, anyway. Apollo suggested she could have her own place built in the hills. A nice cave, maybe, with torches and a curtain. Rachel kissed Percy on the cheek. Thank you, Percy, she said. And don't worry. I don't really need to see the future to know that happiness awaits you. I guess, he said. She turned and followed Apollo into the big house. The rest of the day was as strange as the beginning. As soon as everyone else got back to camp, some tended the wounded while others prepared burial shrouds for the dead. Of course, not every shroud included a body, since some heroes weren't as lucky, if you get the idea. There were shrouds for every hero who was lost in the battle, including one for Beckendorf. The camp counselors all came to an agreement that Selena died a hero, despite all her mistakes, so she got one too. And not just because Clarice made a few threats with her spear. There was even one for Ethan Nakamura. And yes, there was even one for Luke. By the time dinner was over, some kids went to the campfire, some went down to the beach, and others went to bed early. But Percy remained at the Poseidon table, replaying the day in his head. He could see Grover in the distance as he strolled around with Juniper, which made him smile. "Hey," said a sweet voice. Annabeth appeared next to him, carrying a misshapen piece of cake. "Happy birthday." "What?" he asked. "It's your birthday, seaweed brain. It's still August 18th, right?" After all that fighting and talking, Percy had completely forgotten the fact that today was his birthday. The prophecy had come true right on schedule, and he hadn't even thought about the fact that he had turned 16 today. "You made this yourself?" he asked. "Well, Tyson helped me make it," she said. "That would explain why it looks like a chocolate blue brick with extra blue cement," Percy said. "Go ahead, make a wish." And so he did. Then she broke it in two, and they both ate their pieces in one bite. They sat in silence as they stared into the horizon together. "So, you saved the world," Annabeth said. "We saved the world," he corrected. "And Rachel is the new Oracle," Annabeth said, "so she won't be dating anybody." "You don't sound disappointed," Percy noticed. "Oh, I don't care," Annabeth said, shrugging. "Uh-huh. You got something to say, seaweed brain?" "Well, you'd probably kick my butt." "You know I'd kick your butt." "Well, when I was at the River Styx," Percy said, "Nico said I had to concentrate on the one thing that kept me anchored to the world, the one thing that made me want to stay mortal." "Yeah?" "Then, when the Olympians offered to make me immortal," he continued, "I kept thinking." "Oh, you so wanted to," she said. "Well, maybe a little. Maybe at first. But I didn't because I thought, well, I didn't want things to stay the same way for eternity because things can always get better. And I was thinking..." His throat started feeling really dry. "Anyone in particular?" she asked. Her voice was soft, and Percy realized she was trying not to smile. "You're laughing at me," he complained. "No, I'm not," she said. "You're not making this any easier for me," Percy said. She giggled and put her hands on his cheeks. "I am never, ever gonna make anything easy for you, seaweed brain. So do me a favor. Get used to it." She leaned forward and kissed him. It must have been like a zillion times better than that quick one she gave him in the labyrinth last year. He felt like his brain melted through his body. He could have stayed that way forever, but then... "Well, it's about time," Clarice teased. "Is there seriously no privacy around here?" Percy complained. "Well, boys, looks like the lovebirds need some cooling off," she said. "The canoe lake," Connor shouted. They carried them to the water, but kept them close enough to hold hands. Annabeth was giggling, and despite his face turning red, Percy couldn't help but laugh too. They held hands right up until they were thrown in the water. Percy had the last laugh. He made an air bubble to help Annabeth breathe at the bottom of the lake. Their friends kept waiting for them to come up, but when you're a son of Poseidon, you don't have to hurry.
And it was the best underwater kiss of all time. Camp ended late that summer, at least 2 more weeks, right up to the start of a new school year, and they were probably the best 2 weeks of Percy's life. Of course, Annabeth would have killed him if he said anything different, but a lot of other great stuff was going on too. Grover had taken over the Satyr Seekers and was sending them out across the world to find new unclaimed half-bloods. So far, the gods kept their promise. New demigods were popping up everywhere, not just in America, but in some other countries as well, including Canada, Brazil, Europe, etc. "We're gonna need a bigger travel budget," Grover said. "And more satyrs." "You're gonna do great, Grover," said Percy. "After all, a lot of us wouldn't have gotten here if it hadn't been for you." "Oh, stop," he said, blushing. "Plus, if it hadn't been for you, well, a lot of us probably wouldn't have met each other." "Well, yeah, I suppose." They watched as the new cabins were under construction. Nico had some undead construction workers working on the Hades cabin. Even Tyson and his cousins were helping out. Other new cabins included Nemesis, Hypnos, and Hecate. They should have expected more on the way, including Iris, Nike, Hebe, and Tyche. But there were so many other gods out there, who knew how many more cabins they were going to need? Because of this, the Hermes cabin was a lot less crowded now, because all the other unclaimed kids had received signs from their godly parents. It happened almost every day, and every day, more satyr guides were bringing more new kids. "It's going to be a lot different next summer," Percy said. "Chiron's expecting twice as many campers." "Yeah, but it'll be the same old place," Grover said. His smile dropped and said, "Just so you know, I'll be doing a lot more traveling now. Not just with finding more kids, but also with protecting nature and attending councils around the world. I won't be able to see you guys as much." "That won't change anything," said Percy. "You're still my best friend." "Yeah, well, except for Annabeth, of course," Grover said. "Well, you know, it's sort of different," said Percy. "Yeah, you might be right," said Grover. "I love you guys," he whimpered, and the trio had a group hug. Later that day, Percy was taking one last walk along the beach when he spotted his dad doing some fishing. "Dad, what are you doing here?" Percy asked.
"Well, we never really got to talk in private back there, now did we?" Poseidon said. "And I've been needing to thank you."
"Me? But you came to the rescue."
"Yes, and I got my palace destroyed in the process, but you know, they can always rebuild. I've gotten so many thank you cards from the other gods, even ones from Ares and Athena. Although, I'm pretty sure her father and his mother just talked them into it. It's rather gratifying, so thank you, son. I suppose even the gods can learn new tricks. And you're doing quite well with those new cabins, by the way. I suppose you'll be looking forward to having new brothers and sisters to keep you company next summer, once I start looking for my other children."
"Yeah, good one, Dad." "That was a joke, wasn't it?" Poseidon gave him an inside joke wink, and Percy still couldn't tell if he was joking or not.
"I'll see you soon, Percy," he said. "And remember, no which fish are big enough to land."
With that, he dissolved in the sea breeze, leaving his fishing pole behind.